Alright, what's up, fellas? So, we're on the final video. Last one of the year. We know history test on Tuesday. I'm not here. That's nice. Okay, let's get into it. So, 4.4a. Japan's international status in 1919 and its reactions to the Paris Peace settlements. So, Japan emerged from the First World War in a strong position. It was a wealthy nation, a modern industrial sector, and it had a powerful navy, and it had influence over China. There was a constitutional democracy with pro-Western foreign policy, and there was permanent seat on council. It was a permanent seat on the council of the league, right? It was one of the five great powers, Japan's international status. They were awarded Germany's possessions in Shantung. Japan was the only non-Western power at the Paris Peace Conference and was determined to ensure Western nations of racial superiority would not undermine its position and influence. Japan proposed racial equality clause in Covenant of League. Japan also supported by some nations but opposed by most. Oh yeah, Japan's proposed racial equality clause in the Covenant was supported by some nations but opposed by most of them, right? And many nations already banned Japan immigration. So the proposal was rejected because of Wilson, saying that this decision must be unanimous, right? It's a big decision. So public opinion deeply divided over Japan involvement in the league. Japan awarded Germany's possession. Oh, it was now reversed and given to China. So when Japan was awarded the German possessions in Shantung, this was now reversed and the German possessions were given to China, right? So now the Washington Naval Conference, the Navy limited 3/5. Look, let me tell you guys. The Washington Naval Conference caused the Navy to be limited to 3/5 the size of U.S. and British fleets. Right? Okay. So 4.4b. My dog's breathing loud, okay? Come here, bro. 1 second, fellas. Come. He's a breather. You see him? Kid's nice. Alright. So, 4.4b, the political and economic factors in the failure of democracy. So, the Diet was established in 1925, and all adult Japanese males were able to vote, right? The emperor retained enormous power. Economic and political problems emerged during the 20s to 30s. Military leaders grew powerful, right? And secret military groups were organized with the aim to end party politics and restore the emperor as head of state in a military dictatorship supported by people of China, right? Now the political factors in the decline of Japanese democracy. Right? A large number of political parties made decision-making slow and ineffective. Governments could only be formed because of unstable alliances between political parties that held different views. Most Japanese citizens were very nationalistic and held anti-Western opinions. Government ministers argued, so little progress was made addressing key issues. Many leaders were corrupt. Main political parties were funded by large industrial companies, and their policies reflected the needs of those companies, opposed to interests of Japan, right? And the agreements Japan signed at the Washington Naval Conference were unpopular. So the U.S. passed the Japanese Exclusion Act, which banned Japan immigration to the U.S. Secret society supporters attempted to undermine authority of constitutional government by killing leading politicians, right? 11 young naval officers were killed, prime minister, and given very lenient prison sentence. Damn, that's crazy, bro. Oh, 11 young naval officers killed prime minister. Oh, I read it wrong. Sorry, fellas. All right, listen. 11 young naval officers, they were the ones who killed the prime minister, and they were given only a very lenient prison sentence, right? Now, the economic factors that played in the decline of the Japanese democracy, right? So, European industry recovered most markets. World War II boosted demand for and price of Japanese exports, encouraging rapid production. When the war ended, they were unable to maintain its export markets, so Japan significantly overproduced, leading to a fall in prices, right? Supply and demand, right? So companies went out of business, unemployment rose, and the government provided loans, gradually recovering their economic situation, right? And the Great Depression hit. So let's talk about Manchuria. Events in Manchuria led to final collapse of democracy. The Kwantung Army took Manchuria and established puppet state Manchukuo. Now 4.4c, the implications of military rule for Japanese expansionism. So Japan defied the League to continue to pour military resources into the invasion. By the time the Lytton investigation came out with inquiry, Japan already controlled Manchuria. A Japan representative left the meeting. The League did nothing. So the USSR took interest in Manchuria. And then later, Japan withdrew from the League, and agreement at the Washington Conference was no longer valid. Japan also signed the Intercomintern Pact with Germany, and Italy as well later joins. Now the outbreak of the Second Sino-Japanese War. Japan and China's relationship strained. Japan and other countries allowed to station troops near Peking. Japanese troops exceeded terms of Boxer Protocol. Supply became a target for CCP guerrilla tactics. Japan got many major cities, but China is so big it couldn't control the countryside. The US and Britain were concerned over war, and they wanted economic sanctions, but were busy fighting against Hitler. So now, the dilemma facing Japan. Tojo was the prime minister, and the Japan military leaders were divided. The Second World War would provide an opportunity to exploit, right? So Japan should continue its aggressive policies, and Japan's descent into military dictatorship was now complete. Now, listen, fellas. Finally, oh my god, 4.4d, the response for Japanese involvement in the Second World War. Tojo's government embarked on a program of territorial expansion to bring into conflict with the U.S. This conflict led to Japan's own involvement in World War II, and the U.S. was concerned about Japanese expansion. Policy still largely dictated by isolationist determination. U.S. attitude began to change when Japan extended its control over French into China. Japan claimed they wanted peace. American intelligence service broke Japanese diplomatic code, and Roosevelt was fully aware of Japan's plans for further territorial acquisitions in their Pacific region. Roosevelt increased military in the Philippines and ended the American oil exports to Japan. Japan had reached a diplomatic settlement with the U.S. and continued seizing raw materials from Southeast Asia. Roosevelt demanded seize of Japan military build up in the Pacific. Tojo broke off the diplomatic relations with the U.S., and a fleet of Japanese ships already were 3 weeks into its journey towards the American naval base at Pearl Harbor. So they were cooked. They were done for, right? So 453 Japanese fighter planes were armed with bombs, undetected with aim of destroying American Pacific Fleet. The U.S. lost about 2,400 men and 190 aircrafts. Such a surprise that only 4 U.S. aircrafts were airborne. And Japan's motives for their attack were: 1, Japanese military was already convinced war with the U.S. was inevitable, and 2, Japan victory in Russo-Japanese War was because of the destruction of Russian fleet in Port Arthur. 3, destroying the U.S. Pacific Fleet would allow Japan to continue expansion without U.S. interference. And 4, the Japan government believed the attack would undermine morality of Americans so they can seek peaceful settlement with Japan. Okay. Now, Roosevelt was accused of doing nothing to prevent the attacks. Historians deny, and they've made more logical theories. Some say the attack completely... Oh, no, this is a fact. The attack completely ended U.S. isolationism. The U.S. formally declared war on Japan. Hitler greeted news of the attack with jubilation. For Japan, the attack had failed its key objectives, and descent into military dictatorship had led to fundamental changes in Japan's foreign policy and its relations with the international community.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and